Hi, I'm Patrick, and this is Takako, our senior instructor at Yoga Garden. Today we're going to talk about Lotus Pose, try to understand how it works. The lotus plant has one of the most beautiful blooms of all the flowers in the world, so it's only appropriate that this pose, which is so elegant, so beautiful, is named after it. When you see someone doing a nice full lotus, you automatically feel a little calmer, a little more relaxed. It just has that effect on people. But unfortunately, when most of us try for the first time, it goes something like this. Okay, let's do this lotus pose. I'm gonna put my leg here and put this one right here. Oh, it kind of hurts my knee with that. Oh, God. Alright, jam this leg up here. I'm gonna take this and get it right in there. Really deep, not gonna fall out this time. Alright, I think oh, God, what the hell? I can't do this pose for crap. What is wrong? People really misunderstand this pose, so to help me explain it, I invited my friend. You might think I've lost my mind, but actually this little action figure is really helpful. He's basically modeled on human anatomy. He moves the same way we do. So let's say we want to put Goku into Lotus Pose. First we could try to make his knee force up into that position, but it's kind of a locked up thing. It doesn't move very much. Same with the ankle. It's just not a very good way to move. But you can see right here, if he moves from his hip, he really gets a lot of action out of the leg. It's a nice full rotation. And if we do both sides, you can see the Lotus Pose begins to take shape. So you don't have to jam the knee or the ankle together. You have to move from the hips in kind of a circular rotation, just like an action figure, G.I. Joe. Humans are the same. Check it out. I'm going to try to move my knee, but you only get a certain amount of mobility out of the knee. And the same thing with the ankle. You can move it a little bit and get a little bit deeper into the pose, but it's not the main action. If you really want to do a good full lotus, you have to work right here, from the hips and the groin, using that ball and socket joint of the pelvis to get a rotational action. So we're going to rotate the hip, rest the leg high up on the thigh, and the same thing with the other leg, rotating from the hip, not torquing the knee or the ankle too much. And there you have your full lotus. This is really important. This is the only way to do a safe lotus pose. You don't want to hurt your knees or your ankle trying to do some stupid yoga pose. So I know what you're all thinking, that's great, but I can't do that with my hips. Well, here is the solution. Wide angle forward bend. This pose is your first and last stop if lotus is your destination. I mean it. If you just do this pose often, I mean 5 or 6 times a week for 30 minutes at a time, you will get to that lotus pose. Here's a variation of the forward bend, this time stretching down the length of the leg. You can see in all these poses that the knees are always facing up. You don't want your knees rolling out to the side, you're going to lose the stretch. In addition, the back is never curved. You can see how flat Takako's back is there. You're not going to try to hump or arch the back in an attempt to get to the floor of your feet. That's not the point. The point is to circularly rotate the hip joint, just like that action figure. You got to be patient and you got to be consistent, but if you do this pose often, you will get to that lotus position. If you're already there, or you want to look towards the future, once you have a nice deep forward bend, you can start to work on some of the finer details of the pose. For example, Takako is rolling the legs even deeper now, forward, back. The toes are going to come up to the ceiling. What she's doing is working the small muscle groups of the groin. Now this is a really high level of flexibility, but even if you're not here, you can try to always open the feet back, kind of imagine peeling the foot off the floor. If you can get this level of movement out of the hip joint, lotus will become really graceful and open. It'll really kind of bloom, just like the flower that it's named after. So to recap, you want to do lotus, please remember these 3 things. Number 1, you should be doing wide angle forward bend. Number 2, you should be doing wide angle forward bend. Number 3, you should be doing wide angle forward bend. I can't make it any clearer. Do this pose often, do it for a long time, from 5 to 45 minutes at a time, and you'll see your lotus take shape. There are some additional poses you can do. They're not as essential as the forward bend, but they will help your lotus. One is Padmasana, especially this version, with your fingers peel open the feet, kind of like you're opening an orange. You'll feel very quickly that this is working that same area that the forward bend was hitting. At first you may not see this kind of result, but keep practicing. Your feet will open over time. Just be patient. And of course, any pose that uses half lotus is going to prepare you for the full lotus. So here's a half lotus variation of the forward bend. There's all kinds of poses with half lotus variations. Throw those in every once in a while. Just be sure never to force anything. Another good pose is Hero Pose, Virasana. This one is designed to help your knees get the kind of flexibility and stamina that they're going to need if you're going to hold lotus for longer periods of time. But don't make the mistake of thinking that the knees are the main source of movement in Lotus Pose. The knees at most count for 5% of the action of the pose. The vast majority is coming from those hips. And also there's the reclined version, which is just plain relaxing. I love that pose. Okay, so you've worked hard and you finally achieved a good, tight lotus. Here's some things you can do with it. If you want to make shoulder stand a little more interesting, especially if you've been doing yoga for a long time, add Lotus Pose to it. You're going to feel a totally different sensation because the muscles of the legs and the buttocks are locked up in the lotus, so you can't access them, which means you have to use your core, an entirely different set of muscles. It really changes the pose. It's in fact a totally different pose. Give it a shot. You really enjoy that one. Fish pose, of course, as we practice it usually, is with the legs extended, but as it was meant to be practiced, the kind of classical way is with Lotus Pose. Adding lotus to this pose gives you an entirely different point of power because you can actually push down into the floor with your legs and at the same time lift the chest. It allows you to go much deeper into fish pose. And of course, headstand can always be done with lotus. It makes it really challenging because your center of mass is shifted a bit forward and you have to work a lot harder to maintain your line. This is quite an advanced posture, so please take it easy. Don't try it unless you can do a nice tight lotus without using your hands. One of the most underappreciated poses is this little one, Lolasana. Sometimes people call it earring, sometimes pendant. With lotus, you can really get the swinging feeling out of it. It's a tough one, and you'll be surprised how much energy you need just to keep that little pose going. If you have a really deep lotus like Takako, you can try to enjoy Kukutasana. This is a great pose. You have to get your arms through those small holes in the lotus and balance on the hands. Again, really tough pose. Don't do it unless your lotus is really developed. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that lotus, when combined with a cushion to elevate the pelvis, becomes an excellent, if not the best, meditation posture. With the knees resting on the floor and the tailbone grounded into the cushion, the body becomes a tripod. Healthy alignment of the spine is promoted and the nervous system really calms down. There's nothing quite like it. Please never force your lotus pose. Today's pose is today's pose and you shouldn't be thinking about where you're going to be or where you were last week. Enjoy it for what it is. That's what makes yoga fun.